it's a stepping stone, this process. Yes, you'll still manifest really big things, even though it's a process of life, of really coming into your whole authentic worth. You'll still manifest away and really great things will happen. That's why these little acts can create such magnetism of things like getting rid of friends or keeping them at arm's length. That creates already so much magnetism.
Welcome to the Expanded Podcast with your host, Lacy Phillips. As a leading manifestation advisor with a process that's, well, radically different from the old New Age model, mine is rooted in psychology, neuroscience, and my energetic gifts. I created this podcast to help you expand your subconscious limiting beliefs about the potential of deserving the manifestations you're calling in. Therefore, you're tuning into this podcast series to show your subconscious that anything you desire is possible. And by pressing play, you've already started the process of manifesting it. If you enjoy this episode, please leave us our review, comment, and share it with your fellow manifester that's struggling or could really benefit from the information that you're about to learn.
So in today's supported episode, we're back to doing an expanded supported, which You'll hear me intro in just a minute. But before we get to the end exercise, a common theme that we're noticing is that people's subconscious projection isn't really in alignment with how they're wanting to come across in the world. And all of this work is basically about expanding your subconscious, making sure your subconscious worth and projection is in alignment with what you want, and saying no to anything that makes you settle. So at the very end, I'm going to give you a little exercise that I want people to try for the next 2 weeks. Welcome back to Supported Expanded, and we are sharing this with you today on the podcast. What this is, and if you're just new and joining us, we have a couple of prior episodes that are called Supported Expanded, which I highly recommend listening to. Basically, Supported is the bi-monthly class inside the pathway that I teach, and it's where every single person inside the pathway is able to send their questions on manifestation, where they're at in their journey, their blocks, and I answer them. So we're giving you a little taste of it today on the podcast, and we'll see you inside the pathway. Lila's going to kick off the questions that people have submitted, and we're going to go through and chat about them in terms of manifestation and examples and all that good stuff.
So this one's about reparent. I'm working through reparent and making some major transitions. I'm wondering about how to let go of old friendships / social circles that aren't serving me. Does it dim your magnetism to just ghost people or tell little white lies rather than confront them directly? I'm not sure how to move on from certain relationships without hurting other people.
No, it doesn't. And that's something I talk about a lot in Unblock No if you haven't done it. Basically, there's a few ways we communicate to the universe, and a lot of old New Age superstition talks about how our thoughts create our reality, and if we think negatively or we behave negatively, that we'll attract more of that, and that's absolutely not true when it comes to the energetics of manifestation. I can actually read the energy, and so there's a few ways that we actually communicate to the universe. The most powerful is through our actions. So basically, that's why passing tests creates such magnetism, or no longer settling where we used to settle before creates such magnetism. And when we do these actionable things that step into our worth, it's kind of the clearest communication channel to the universe that we're ready for the next bigger things we've been asking for. The other way is to well, you can learn about this in Unblock No, but why I mentioned the actions in this particular instance, it kind of doesn't matter what you say or do. What matters is how you're actionably approaching it. So in your specific circumstance, you're doing this to create space for the better things you want to come through, the people that are more supportive of you, that are more in alignment or as conscious as you are, that can also have a give and take of space that feels good and aligned. So however you have to do it, again, if you haven't totally healed or repaired the fact that you don't know how to consciously communicate well and you don't have those tools and you're not in your worth there yet, sometimes the way you have to go about it is ghosting them or I'm busy, I'm sorry, my time's, and I had to do that for a long time. And it absolutely does not affect your manifestation process at all. In fact, because your action is that I want to step into my worth and no longer settle in these friendships that aren't reciprocating my needs or aren't showing up for me or aren't the kindest or most positive, you're going to create magnetism. So that's a fantastic question.
Yeah, I definitely find myself in that period of time where I tend to ghost people or tell little white lies instead of purely standing up for myself or speaking to create those boundaries. But I guess I have a question. So if you're doing that out of fear, so like for me specifically, I am afraid to fully stand up for myself and to, instead I like kind of ghost or run away.
Yeah.
If you're doing that out of fear, can that, I guess, if facing your fear and doing what scares you, will that just kind of speed up the process?
This is such a good question. And so what I like to tell people is manifestation, we talk about it a lot, and we actually have just added extra upgrades inside of each of the workshops. And one thing that we talk about in Unblock Shadow, I think on the first day, is like, this is a process of taking each onion layer peel at a time.
Right.
So here's what happens when you're not consciously ready to be, what do you want to say, like confronting?
Yeah.
If you're not there yet, like you don't have the worth, you haven't done the work to build that up where you feel safe enough to do that. You've read about the tools of how to consciously communicate, and you just come out blindly and you tell someone like, I'm sorry, I can't hang out with you anymore because I feel like you're envious of me and you don't have my best interest and it doesn't feel good. So I don't have space for you anymore. You can do that when you've arrived at the place, you've unblocked enough, you've learned the tools of how to do that. But what's going to happen if you're not at that place? It's going to totally backfire on you. So that's why it's like, I always encourage people to get to the energetic level of where they need to be in order to have those conversations. You'll see that you no longer really need to have those conversations once you get to that place anyways. The stuff naturally drops off. But actually, we were just talking about before filming this, if you're comfortable talking about it, Lila, like that you feel like you keep attracting in right now these kind of creepier dudes that sort of prey on you because you're nice and innocent, even though inside you're like, I see what's going on here and this isn't okay. It's the exact kind of same thing that's happening. Obviously, too, when you are conscious enough and ready to have those conversations, you're going to create a lot of fucking magnetism when you push through and do them. But if you're just not there yet, you need to do the unblocking that gets you to the place where you're projecting, I can have this conversation. I have everything I need. Nothing to lose there. Otherwise, it's just going to kind of backfire. They're going to think you're crazy. They're going to gossip about it. It's just going to create a lot more stuff because you're not in your power to have that yet.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And that's also comforting to hear because it feels like, I don't know, it's where you are where you're ready to be, and you can kind of like find ways to still step into your power without going fully out of your comfort zone too soon.
Until you're like expanded enough for it.
Until you're expanded enough. Exactly.
And that's like, I just really want to tell people, it's a stepping stone, this process. Yes, you'll still manifest really big things, even though it's a process of life of really coming into your whole authentic worth. You'll still manifest away and really great things will happen. That's why these little acts can create such magnetism of things like getting rid of friends or keeping them at arm's length. That creates already so much magnetism. But yeah, being comfortable with the building steps along the way and patient with yourself.
Okay, thank you.
And everybody else is just fucking doing it who is on the journey too, that are conscious enough to want to do the work.
True. Okay, partnership. I am no longer sexually attracted to my husband. I don't want to leave my husband and our baby, but where do I go from here? I don't want to say I settled because he's everything I want except the sex. Can you have an affair and be in your self-worth, or do I approach him and ask for an open relationship, or do I do nothing and live an unfulfilling sexless life?
I personally, it really varies. This isn't my expertise. It all comes down to energetics. So what I find when I've been in relationships that become sexless, it's usually both of our inner child stuff playing out on each other. And I'll give a really open example of this. In my prior relationship with my partner of 6 years, 5 years, 6 years, I can't even remember. We had a very platonic relationship after like year 2. It was like brother and sister, and it was both of our shit. He grew up in a very enmeshed relationship with his parents, and I grew up in a very enmeshed relationship with my parents. And therefore that creates like real dimness in terms of sexuality. For instance, in his situation, his father was an alcoholic and his mother, he really had to kind of step into that role of like showing up and supporting his mom, which kind of feels like partnership. So now when he's in a committed relationship where he has to do that with his partner, it takes all the sex away because it kind of feels like a mom-son dynamic since he grew up in an enmeshment. So what I encourage, if it's a relationship you know that you want to be in and you want to continue, that you both need to open up and look at that stuff, whether it's through counseling. A lot of people love Esther Perel for this work, you know, her first book being Mating in Captivity, and she just had another one come out. I'd address that first and really look at the inner child stuff and all the psychology of what's creating complete like dimness and no spark in the relationship. And then, of course, if there's nothing that can be healed from there, having the conversation around your needs being met, if you guys are evolved enough to have that open relationship dynamic and that works with you, as long as you're both on the same compatible page with it and it feels safe and you're creating safe circumstances. I know couples that's worked really well for. I personally have way too much shit to like have that be successful for me. But I think that that's beautiful if you guys are evolved enough. I have friends that one of them has another relationship and the other one doesn't desire. So it's really finding what works for you guys. But I would definitely highly encourage like looking at what's creating that lack of spark. Is it that you're not physically attracted to one another? That's shadow to work through. You know, there's a lot of layers there that you can peel away and work through before you get to the point of leaving or having those bigger conversations, you know, that maybe one or both of you might not be comfortable with or are comfortable with, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. When you are needing to get out of a job that is not in alignment with your authentic code and you are calling in another bridge job, how picky should you be? Sometimes I feel like I just need to leave, but I also don't want to settle for something that isn't great enough or great, even though it's keeping me in my restaurant job longer.
Yeah. So with the bridge job, your most important objective is that it's within the field of interest you want to be in. And that can be super broad and open. The most important thing is there's going to be an element about this bridge job that expands you. That's the only requirement of a bridge job. That's it. So, for instance, if you're wanting to go into film, even if it's at the front desk, like I did, I knew I wanted to act and do film. And my very first job in LA, real job, was working as a front desk reception person at a VFX house. And at the time, sure, I wasn't in a movie and sure, I wasn't doing like everything that I wanted to do, but I learned a plethora about post-production. Our main clients were Michelle Gondry and Spike Jonze. Like, I mean, I have those relationships to today that I can like call on and ask for favors. It taught me, my executive producer really taught me how to like run a company a little bit. So the bridge job just needs to be expansive within whatever field you're wanting to pivot into. That's the only requirement. So beyond that, you don't have to be picky at all.
Mm-hmm. I've recently accepted my bitchiness as part of my shadow. I've been told repeatedly that I'm intimidating. Should I be concerned about this? I don't want to make people nervous, but I don't feel bad necessarily about being intimidating. I suspect, however, it is preventing me from forming lots of friendships with women. Maybe that's okay. Thoughts?
So the first thing I would ask is, are you a manifester? Like, then you're probably living your design if you are. Or if you're an MG, do you lean more towards the manifester? You can find all that information out through Jenna Zoe's programs. That's the first thing I'd be curious about. And then beneath that, I always wonder, now that you've owned it, right, in shadow, you have the opportunity to play with that energy because you're no longer dodging it. You've owned it. It feels like weird and yucky owning that you're a bitch, but then it starts to feel empowering. Then the next layer of work that I would suggest is looking at why you might need that as a defense mechanism. And that's something I would be doing in the daily reprogramming exercise, or I would be doing in an unblocked reparent. Where did you pick this up as something you need for power, survival, to protect yourself? That would be the next layer of work I would do. And you'll know that that's fully integrated and healed when people are no longer intimidated anywhere by the fact that you are assertive or there's many adjectives that can come with being bitchy. It'll no longer rub people the wrong way. They'll just accept you for that. They'll totally be like, even women will be like, that's just her. That's cool. She's in it. But you'll no longer put people off. So that's kind of the next layer of work I would do now that you've fully owned it. You can play with the energy to go look at, okay, why do I need this? And then you'll know that it just sort of is one of the tools that lie inside of your tool bag for when you need to pull it out and use it.
When you reprogram during the DRE to give yourself what you needed, how is that different from the think positive models of spiritual bypassing? I feel like I'm sometimes just doing positive thinking during the DREs. Am I doing it wrong?
The most important thing that we talk about a lot in the DREs or any DI, so DIs are called deep imaginings, and the process of manifestation, it's my hypnosis process that varies a little bit from normal hypnosis, because normal hypnosis actually has a lot of spiritual bypass in the sense that it doesn't even care where a block came from. It just wants you to automatically start reinforcing the positive. And I started to notice the more self-worth, lower self-worth clients had, myself included, our brains are just a little too smart to be like, oh, I buy it, the good stuff now. So I knew that you had to like really open up the wound and do some deep reprogramming. Now, the big thing that's the most important when you're down there, it's not that everything looks like a fairy tale after and is like peachy and fine. The most important objective when you're doing that reprogramming is that you feel in your power in whatever that root situation was that went down. So it doesn't have to be like a major healing happened, even though that can be very beneficial and good on many levels, like I think just for your health in general. The most important thing in terms of magnetism and manifestation is that you feel in your power in that root situation after. So hopefully that gives you a little licensing to let yourself go, that you're not just like creating the world is fine and everything's okay and everything worked out fine, especially if your brain's not believing in it, you're not doing yourself any justice. But if you're getting down there and being like, I spoke my needs and now I feel like I can project boundaries or power or that I'm safe, that I'm okay, that I'm worthy, those are the things that you're trying to get that healing down there. Less Disney fairy tale.
Right. And I do think you fully feel that difference. Like I can tell when I come out of a DRE, and sometimes it takes me doing it a few times, but that if I'm just like trying to think positive about something, I never feel differently after.
It just feels like fake.
Yeah. And then I'm kind of like,
yeah. And then you didn't do anything.
Right.
You know?
So you can really check yourself by testing how you feel, I think.
I agree. That's same for me.
I took this 3-month-long job that I knowingly chose to settle for. I also made a very tight schedule with my other job in school that would leave me with not much time for myself. The weekend just before I was supposed to start everything, I was hustling really hard at my other job and fell, then sprained my ankle. The timing for this to happen was just too coincidental because now I am on crutches and have to slow down to recover. I told the job I settled on and they let me go. My question is, does the universe mess up plans deliberately / put us in our place? Also, is it possible that I'm in a rut and rock bottom at the same time?
100%. And I know that's really hard to hear. You know, it doesn't feel super optimistic, but it's actually a really beautiful thing, because if the universe didn't care about you meeting with the things you want, it wouldn't fuck with you. Like, honestly, it would really let you be complacent. If you weren't meant to have like this big journey in life or whatever, it would let you just go about the way that's safe and that people prescribe to be happy when they're sort of in a daze. It cares about you. So basically, usually why this happens is most likely, whether unconsciously, consciously, I'm sure there's a bit of consciousness, you're probably gearing up to settle for something else again, or being safe with it, or maybe staying at this a little bit longer, the settling job, just to be safe. And there's something you've been calling in that wants to come through, but you're not building your worth up quick enough to get there. So it's literally knocking you to have to be not settling, literally like not settling. And so it's a really beautiful space that you're in. And please, 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 please be doing rock bottom right now. More rock bottom than the rut. After you do the rut at the rock bottom a little bit, graduate into the rut if you need to. But I would personally prescribe, do the rock bottom and then move right into up level right now. And I would be doing the daily reprogramming every day on any trigger that's coming up for you that makes you afraid or want to settle or scared or really afraid to be in this physical situation that it might ruin everything. That's the way that I would be approaching this personally.
I know that we aren't powerful enough to think things into existence, but can you explain the energetics behind when you think about something and then it happens? For example, you're thinking about your mom and she calls, or your friend tells you her boyfriend just started watching a TV show, and then your boyfriend says he just started watching the same one. The men didn't know each other. Is there such a thing as a coincidence?
It's less of a coincidence as much as you guys are just tapped into your intuitions and frequencies. Mm-hmm. You guys are just in the same, a really good indicator of like psychic behavior is when you think of someone and they call. That's when you can start really listening to your intuition. That's all that's happening. And most likely, like the energetic download I'm getting for you right now, like the message you need to do is like start to tune into your psychic abilities and your intuition. You're being guided. Like usually when the universe starts to do that, show you like crazy, wild kismet synchronicities at once, it usually the messaging is like you need to tap into your own gifts and start using those because it's how I communicate to you. So it's sort of more of a sign than it is like you're going to start, every thought you have is going to start creating your reality. So I would differentiate those things right now that, well, it's so weird. My thoughts are creating my reality. Let that go, let that go, let go. What's going on is the universe is like, yo, listen, you have gifts. You came onto the planet with gifts. It's the way that I can make this process a lot quicker with you. So I'm just doing these quick things to show you the sign and that it's time to listen to your gifts and really tap into those and use them, because that's how I'm communicating to you. That's sort of what's happening.
Yeah, I remember you telling me once when I was asking you something about like why all these things were coming. It just was like coincidentally, I think it was like a bunch of random photo things were happening, and you were just like, oh, it means you're in flow.
Yeah.
And so just like surrendering to that and kind of allowing things to come.
And before that, you had just been like, show me, universe, if I'm supposed to, I want to go after writing and photography or whatever. And you're more expanded, I think, in photography, that it just started flowing. And you did something to step into your worth, I think, that created a little magnetism.
Yeah.
Hey, this isn't your podcast interview. We love you, but Barley, you got to pull it together.
Yeah. Shh, you're getting pet.
Yeah.
I am concerned that nothing is going to stick. I have lots of ideas and get excited straight away, and then I talk myself out of it or fear I'm going to get bored. I feel like I have a trust in the world, but not in myself. I have an entrepreneurial spirit, but have never followed any of my ideas through fully. How do I know what to trust in myself, and when manifesting and receiving pings and tests, how to sort the wheat from the chaff? I have just completed Reparent, which I felt really helped me to see what I needed, and I already feel better for it. But I don't know how to trust what I should pursue that has longevity. I'm a manifesting generator, which obviously yeah. With an Aquarius sun, Capricorn moon, Cancer rising, if that helps.
That's really good. Lila, I'm going to let you in. You know enough of this work, and you're an MG. I know what I want to say, but I want you first to kind of address this.
It's hard because I definitely find myself in this as well, but I think finding out that I am a manifesting generator gave me a lot of licensing to just kind of allow myself to be a bit more spontaneous in what I'm interested in. And I do find that it's hard. I do talk myself out of things, or I fear that I fear committing to something, but I've found ways to kind of pick up on trends. Well, I guess also kind of weaving in my authentic code to this, but picking up on trends of things that I'm interested in. Mm-hmm. Say it's like this like project that I want to do sounds really cool, or like I want to go, I don't know, like I'll find a bunch of random things that I want to do, and it's hard for me to commit fully to doing one because I'm like, well, what if I don't want to do that anymore, and then I've wasted time not doing the other one? And I feel whenever that happens, I feel really stuck and like I don't make progress anywhere. But what I've allowed myself to do is just like kind of stop thinking and just go with it. And if I do totally get bored, then whatever. I just let myself kind of like flow in this river of wherever my, manifesting generator impulses are taking me. And usually those are more of my pings as well. And sometimes a ping will lead me to go start on one project, and then halfway through I'm done. I don't want to do it, but I've kind of I find that there's like a little bit something from that project that then will like propel me into another project. And somehow I like find like, I don't know, I start meeting people that way, or, I know this is a vague example, but I just have allowed myself to surrender to that, because that used to just keep me so stuck and not being able to move forward in anything. And now I just will start something and be okay with not finishing it, because I know that there's a reason why I was impulsively led in that direction, even if I'm not meant to fully, follow through.
It's exactly what I was going to say. Follow every impulse you have. Go for it. And then you're probably going to burn out pretty quickly and move on to the next. And you're going to take tools. Exactly. Yeah. So I know that can feel exhausting, or like you're not getting somewhere you want to get quick enough, but it's all going to add up one day. It will all add up, and you'll look back and be like, oh, no wonder I spent 2 weeks learning how to become a lawyer. Exactly. Like getting interested in going to law school for 2 weeks, and just follow the impulses. And it's kind of like your emotions, I think, too. And Letting Go is such a good book for that, where it's like the more you lean in, it just burns off very quickly. So you get to face your truth and your road a little bit more, rather than spending all the time just freaking out because of what society's created, that time's running out. You need to have focus on one thing. You need to follow and do that one thing well if you want to be successful. All of that's bullshit. None of that's true. So I would exactly approach it just like you said, I think is the smartest thing. And honestly, DRE, the fucking stuff that's coming up along the way that makes you feel.
And that's been really helpful.
Yeah, like I'm a failure. I'm wasting my time. I don't have clarity. Look at everybody else around me is successful, and it seems like they have such a straight track. Get rid of all of that, because that's actually what's holding up, I think, the process from going quicker. And I think it's more beneficial to lean into every one of those little things you have and let them fucking burn off and keep the ones that stick for longer or longest.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not fully versed in astrology, but I know because you're a Capricorn moon and I'm a Capricorn sun. And I feel like that Capricorn kind of goes against the, like, you know, starting something and not finishing it. Like with my Capricorn sun, I'm like, well, I need to like somehow climb a ladder that doesn't really exist in what I actually want to do. But I feel like that need where I need to keep going and pushing through, even though I don't want to.
Totally.
So yeah, that's something.
And you have an Aquarius moon.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
So we're similar.
Yeah, it's that like, yeah, I think MGs, I'm grateful to not be one. But you guys are probably so grateful to not be a projector that's tired all the time, you know?
Yeah, grass is always greener.
Grass is always greener. And I think there's something to be said. I don't think enough MGs, from what I'm gathering, obviously I'm no human design expert or reader, Jenna is, but I think enough MGs don't stick themselves in an environment that allows them to feel confident about the fact that they need to pick up and stop.
Yeah, that's fully true.
You know, it's like, where's that community? Where's that town? That thing where it's totally cool to live this way? Or creating it, you know, surrounding yourself with other MGs and having a support group like an Unblocked Village where you guys just chat about like all the magic that comes from like starting, stopping, interest, this, that, you know, having so many interests everywhere. I think that would be hugely expansive.
Yeah, that was really helpful for me. Going to school in DC where no one does. Like everyone's very much on one path in DC. And everyone who I went to school, all of my classmates are all on that one path business. You know, they know what the next step is and they follow through. So for me, like moving out to LA and being surrounded by a bunch of freelancers who do a bunch of different random projects was so immensely helpful for me to finding those expanders.
Totally. I wonder what the Soul Level Collective is.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about Ainsley McLeod. He developed this whole system as a psychic that talks about what soul level you are, 1 through 10. We go through all of them. But I wonder if it's like primarily, I forget the political people, but like 4s or something.
I wonder.
I know. So interesting.
So interesting. Listen to that episode.
Yeah. That's coming out or has maybe already aired.
Yeah, I think the 26th.
So I'm quickly interrupting this episode to invite you, if you're ready to start your manifestation journey, or if anything you've heard in our manifestation episodes has piqued your interest to begin. We have a la carte workshops in everything from the basics bundle, which is what we recommend to everyone who starts. It's the formula that actually teaches you how to manifest, unblocked inner child, and unblocked shadow. We also have a la carte workshops on love and money. But the real gem is the Pathway membership because it encompasses every single workshop we have. It's a year-long membership with full access to the few a la carte offerings we have and exclusive workshops not available anywhere else, such as the daily practice, which is what everybody in the Pathway uses, hopefully at least 3 times a week to daily in order to truly create the new neural pathways that one needs in order to manifest, and houses the library of our deep imaginings, which is our unique hypnosis process that allows you to get into your subconscious and overwrite those old neural pathways, creating the new ones. You can use our special code EXPANDED, all caps, EXPANDED, to receive $20 off your first a la carte workshop purchase or $20 off your first month of the Pathway. Again, that's all caps, EXPANDED, EXPANDED. Okay, now back to the episode.
I've successfully passed several tests in manifesting a partner, and I've turned down several suitors, including most recently one who looked exactly like my first love, who completely broke my heart. I find myself having constant talks where I cut off seeing the person and find myself emotionally drained. I'm exhausted by these tests, even though I'm passing them. How can I make these tests less emotionally draining? Am I just not unblocking or expanded enough?
Yeah, honestly, the tests stop. If I were in your position right now, the biggest question I would have is, where do I still feel unworthy of what I want in relationship, or unworthy that I can have it, or that it's even possible, or that it's safe enough? Those are the things that are making tests still come through, because there's still something you're projecting that says, I can't have it, or I'm not good enough, or I don't want it. The test are just going to keep coming until that happens. You're making headway. Some people don't even get it and don't even get tests. So something's orbiting and wants to come through. But those are the main questions to really ask yourself right now, like getting deeper in a DRE and being like, and using the DRE daily, how do I still not feel worth it or not believe that this is possible? Those are the two most important questions, and chipping away from there every single day. And then the test will just change and elevate, and eventually your person will come through a lot quicker.
I'm a singer, songwriter, healer, and have been doing this work for a year and a half. I've had some great breakthroughs, but I have been half manifesting jobs for nearly a year now. Example, I get booked for a festival retreat, clients book in, but nothing happens or they cancel on me. I'm worried that these experiences are now embedding in my subconscious, that I receive opportunities easily, but then they never come into fruition. Any tips on navigating this further and staying in faith?
Yeah. So again, this is just like the question before this. It actually has nothing to do with the fact that it's currently happening and going to embed in your subconscious. There's something embedded in your subconscious already that's making it happen. And so, for instance, your real work would be to do DREs on where did I pick this up when I was little? Did I watch my mom? Did this happen to my mom all the time? She'd get so close to everything she wanted, and then it wouldn't happen. She would self-sabotage. There's something inside of you that when it comes, you're pushing it away, that you're afraid of it. You won't be good enough. You're not fully good enough for it yet. That's what needs to be unblocked. And that's all that needs to happen. And it'll start to shift around. There's something going on there.
I found your work 9 months ago after I experienced a sexual trauma at the hands of a friend. I've since done a lot of work to establish energetic boundaries as I uncovered codependency, love avoidance, and people-pleasing were rampant in my life up until the earthquake moment of the assault. I started Shadow on January 1st of this year and stopped within days because of the post-traumatic stress that arose. Through support and self-care, I've been able to restabilize my nervous system and have been doing the DRE. I started Shadow again yesterday. Recently, a new friend who I share with very openly admitted to having feelings for me. I was recently okay with the situation until yesterday when said friend shared, I think you putting up barriers might also correspond with me wanting to respectfully find ways around them. This brings up uneasy feelings for me, as I don't feel any sexual or romantic desire towards that person. I'm worried because the situation directly mirrors the way I felt towards the person who assaulted me. How can I navigate this situation?
You just, God, this is so hard. And number one, I'm so sorry that happened. And good for you for being able to look at it and support yourself through it and work through it, because this is very hard. Energetically speaking, what needs to happen is you need to directly cut this friend off right away until you're in a place. You're obviously asking for something in your life to come through right now. Maybe it's in partnership, maybe it's in career and stuff like that. And unfortunately, you are being tested with this very similar dynamic again. And the universe is testing, like, we need you to really, really stand up for yourself and your boundaries and who you are, and you're worth that. And not to say that this is ever going to repeat itself, but because this situation has similar red flags, your most important action step is to completely say no, let it go. Don't care about how it affects this person. It's all about you being able to make your boundaries the strongest, most important thing in your life. And you're going to get to a place where you won't have to, it's kind of very similar to the very first question of this episode, where you won't have to live in that abrupt polarity at all times. But that is the biggest achievement, lesson that needs to happen right now, that you're projecting to the universe, that you're not fucking around. Nobody's ever allowed to violate your space again. Does not matter how it affects them or makes them feel. It's all about your personal well-being. That's the direct step that needs to happen right now with this person and anybody else that comes into your life in the immediate future that resembles this dynamic. Even if society maybe makes you feel like you're too sensitive or you don't care, or that you have to people please and care how this person feels, none of that matters right now. From my mouth straight to your ears, it's all about absolute no. No means no, out the door, period. Like, you're impeding on my boundaries. So, and we support you entirely here. And thank you for being vulnerable enough to ask that question.
Okay, I've worked through formula magnetism, reparent, and opulence, and I'm currently working on shadow. I'm learning a lot, and the work has been eye-opening, but I still don't fully understand how I do that work and call something in at the same time. I want to call in a new job, a script sale, a house, but I can't seem to grasp how I can take any of those things through a workshop. When I do the workshops, I'm just present in what each DI calls up, and I worry that I'm doing the subconscious work but not actually manifesting. How do I call something in? Or perhaps the better question is, what does that feel like? I'm so invested in this work, but I don't understand how to hold my manifestation list and the subconscious work in mind. It feels to me like I'm standing in a gap between those two branches of the process.
Thank you for asking that.
Yeah, that's a
I
great
imagine
question.
anybody who's like first coming to this, especially if you've been in past New Age manifestation rhetoric that tells you like you've got to hold the frequency of what you want for it to come, or you've got to really like hold on to it strong, that vision, and all that stuff. The first thing I want to say to you is, well, I'll give you an outline exactly. The way that you manifest is through the formula and magnetism. So it's allowing each of those steps to flow. As you made your list, it sounds like if you're a specific manifester, even non-specific, you still make a form of a list. And then it all comes down to expanding, passing tests, and, that's basically other steps in the formula. In the meantime, while all of that dance is happening with the universe, what you're using, now that you've completed those other subconscious workshops, all you need to do at this point is kind of use the daily reprogramming exercise or your intuition when you see a trigger come up that triggers. So in a day where you're like, I really feel not good enough, or a test presents itself and you're like, this feels really uncomfortable. Why? Or why am I attracting this? That's when you'll take those questions and those triggers through the daily reprogramming exercise to peel away at anything that's potentially blocking your manifestation from coming through. So there's a triangle, a trifecta of how we manifest. A, the way that we manifest is that we unblock any limiting beliefs in ratio to what we're calling in. B, that we expand enough through expanders that we see to believe that we can actually have what we want, that it's even possible for us. And then D, we pass tests to get rid of, to communicate through our actions to the universe that will no longer settle where we settled in the past. So reread me what they're manifesting.
So here, a new job, a script sale, and a house.
Great. So you've made your list of the new job you're calling in. You've made the list of how you want to script sell, like the different companies you'd like to sell to, Lionsgate, or I don't know, but I'm so out of that world now. And then the last one,
a house.
A house. You've made your list for a house. And then you've already done all of the beautiful foundational work of like shadow, reparent, all of that stuff. Great. You've done layer one. Your subconscious foundation is primed. Now, what you're going to be doing when you're going to be out searching for expanders for your house, for your new job, also for the script sales. So that's going to be looking at other writers who are like you, who ended up selling, to a very similar thing that you want. They come from a similar background. You're going to be out looking for expanders that have the type of house, or that house exists in your price range of what you're wanting. You're going to be out looking for expanders who have found the job that you want. So that's like your actionable steps. Then you're probably going to start noticing where you have limiting beliefs. You can just sit here right now and go, what inside of me still doesn't even believe that script sale's possible, or that I'm worth it, or that people my age can have it? Whatever the story is, that's what you would take through the daily reprogramming exercise. Same to do with the job, same to do with the house. So that's your actionable step on the daily, is expanding and taking any limiting beliefs or triggers or negative feelings that make you feel not good enough where you want through the DRE is how you're going to navigate that. And then you'll start to get pretty intuitive with the process, where you'll have moments come up where maybe you'll see all of a sudden that something about your mom, this is obviously fictitious, but that your mom always had a dream but never followed it. You're going to go like, are there parts of me where I have a dream? Like I'm writing these scripts, but I don't actually believe this is possible because I witnessed that my mom never got it. Take that through the daily reprogramming exercise or reparent. So that's how you kind of find your intuition, is you go through the formula magnetism to call in and see the steps of how to manifest. You prime your subconscious working through shadow and reparent. And then on the daily, what you're focused on is expanding and taking any limiting beliefs and triggers through the daily reprogramming exercise, or revisiting shadow if you can tell like, whoa, I'm really judging things. There's an aspect of me that I've denied that this is possible. You would take it through shadow. Or reparent when you're like, man, this all totally stems from childhood. There's a whole phase of my childhood where I don't even feel worthy of being a writer because I was told women can't be writers or men can't be writers, whatever it is. You would then take that through reparent. So that's kind of how you dance with the process. So I think that's a really good question, and sounds like you have totally phase one all done. Now you can be expanding and doing daily reprogramming. And then intuitively, if you notice you have to revisit reparent or shadow, you would do that.
Yeah, I think that'll be really helpful for a lot of people.
Totally.
I put so much pressure on myself in my career to perform my best, juggling a full-time high-level position and consulting work. It often leaves me overly stressed as I critique myself harshly and overthink the creative work I do in order to perform at my highest standards. I've done all the workshops, but this continues to pop up for me. I wanted to know if you had specific tips on how to minimize self-pressure and performance in a demanding high-level career.
So what I would be looking at in the daily reprogramming exercise is, where did I pick up the need to be a perfectionist? Where did I pick up the need to be an overachiever to be loved? If I'm not a perfectionist and an overachiever, I'll lose everything I've ever had, my security. So I would really be taking all of that through the daily reprogramming exercise and chipping away at anywhere you notice a trigger of having to be a perfectionist and an overachiever to keep stability and be loved.
So this is for you. Personal question.
Let's see.
Did you ever have doubts that your gifts or your process actually worked? And if so, how did you move through that? I'm studying a specific type of energy healing that I know works, but as I practice on clients, I fear that it somehow doesn't work, or that I'm making stuff up. How can I get past this?
Yeah, this is a great question. I 100% used to. When I first discovered this process of manifestation, I only thought it worked on me. I was like, I just must be magical. Like, whoa, I've tapped into my magic. And it wasn't until a few friends and one of my chefing clients wanted to try it that I was like, oh, you guys are manifesting. This works on anybody. But I was still only expanded this much where I'm like, oh, you guys are just freaks of nature. We're in similar consciousness. So clearly, it's working for you. And then when I did get the download that I had to do this, so what happened was, when Christmas, all my resources dried up. All my chefing clients went out of town. I had no money. I think I had to call my mom to use her credit card, which I'd never done in my life before. And that's when I kept getting a meditation. You're not getting anything until you put this out there. It's what you're supposed to do. And I had to kind of trust that. And that was the scariest thing ever, because I was like so afraid of being judged of this. It's so crazy. And then also how to I had a lot of shadow of people I admired in the wellness industry, of how they would judge me. Like, who does she think she is, that she can come out? I had all this shadow, but I put it out there. And here was the key. I always equated my prices with my confidence. And I really encourage people to do that when they are starting something for the first time. If you inflate things too much and you subconsciously don't even believe that your thing works, or it's going to be that good, or that you're good enough for it, it's all going to be like this. So when I first launched my sessions, I think they were $65 for an hour. I was super flexible of people's schedules. I was kind of testing it out on a lot of people for a very cheap price at the time. And then when I did my first few workshops, I did them for free with friends to keep testing out, and then when I started to see results, that's when I got more confident. It vision held and reflected back to me. This works, you're worth it. And then I would up my prices based on when my confidence of this work upped. And then I started to just get really, really exhausted being a projector. So that's when I started to really raise my prices, because I was like, what number is it worth it for how much this is affecting my body? And luckily, the expansion came that we could do the online workshops, which benefits way more people, is a way better use of my time and energy. And so now we have a pretty good understanding that it works. If people really are ready and they're really diligent and they're figuring it out and figuring out their blocks, they're manifesting. We get a lot of testimonials. Some people, they don't, that's why we're always trying to come up with bettering the workshops or content that supports them, or where are we losing people? That's why we have the supported class. We need to help them manifest too, but we're pretty confident that it works, the formula works, the process works. So that's where our confidence in pricing has always matched that. And then now we're at a place, luckily, because we've gone the online route, that we can actually make it more affordable and accessible to people. But that's another confident move. If we didn't feel confident in this process, we would have never done that, because we would have energetically, the money wouldn't have aligned with it. We would still have to be hustling for the high price formula, magnetism, the yada yada. But now we offer this for $24.99 a month, because we're so confident that it's going to benefit so many more people, and also that people will be drawn to it and sign up enough because it works. So that's my biggest thing, is always equate what you're doing, your pricing, how you're holding your sessions and your gifts with your confidence level. So in your particular case, even though this isn't a question about money, it's more of how do I really trust that this can happen? Do it for free enough times until you really see that it works and it has results. Your confidence is going to build to where you stop even questioning that portion. And then, the newer, bigger problems are not problems, but blocks are going to come up that you need to unlock. That's how I would approach it.
I imagine too that if you're not feeling fully confident in what you're, trying to help someone else achieve, then you probably end up projecting that lack of confidence, and then they might feel that as well. So
totally,
I think, getting to a place where you feel fully confident.
Yeah. That's why, like, anytime when I was working with clients and they were going to start something and they were shadowy about it, I'm like, do it for free, do it for friends constantly, do it until you feel confident. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Don't just jump in. Even if you're like, I got to hustle and make money, have your bridge job. Don't, like that quote by Ruby Warrington, you don't have a baby and then expect it to like make its own living and feed itself. This is your baby. Like, don't put the pressure on it to be your full source of income until you feel confident where the energetics of money align with it.
Thank you for that. Okay. I'm trying to call in money and opportunities to have my writing published, but out of nowhere, exes keep coming up. My ex from a long time ago has gotten in touch to tell me he's had his first baby. Other exes have also reached out. What are the energetics of this? Why would I be getting relationship tests even though that's not something I'm calling in?
Because money and love are always connected. And what are they close to again? I'm trying to call in money and opportunities with writing. That's why. Money and love, for some freakish reason, are always connected. I talk about that in Unblocked Opulence. And working through it, you can kind of find those connections a little bit. But what's going on there is that you're trying to up level financially, and the universe is testing to see if you're still petty about your ex relationships. Like, you feel worthy of this job and stuff like that? Or is it going to knock you out that your ex had a baby? Do you believe you can have your baby, like your scripts and writing and stuff go through and your happy family and all the stuff you want? Or are you still going to be will the wind be knocked out of you? And what's going on there, the energetic of, or will the wind be knocked out of you, is, do you feel worthy enough of what you want? Because your low self-worth in relation, like the ex left you, I don't know, this is fictitious, but I'm just going to give an example. The ex left you and then he found the person and had the baby. Well, there must be something wrong with me. I wasn't good enough. That energy is what's being tested in money to see. You need to knock out all that energy. And the way that I would approach that, truthfully, is through the daily reprogramming exercise. Like, the trigger of your ex having a baby and coming back or whatever is triggering you in that circumstance. Maybe it's not even the baby. I would take that through the daily reprogramming exercise and start knocking it out, that what the universe is wanting you to do is be expanded enough that you can have everything you want in your career plus your personal life. Like, you can have your cake and eat it too, and that you don't give a shit. I have to like play with energetics. So I'm like, it's not that you don't give a shit, that you know you're so valuable and such a catch, you're so worthy, that these old things to do with exes, they don't even phase you. Like, when you look at the old ex situations, you're like, dodged a bullet there, great person, definitely not right for me. I know my person's going to be so perfect for me. That's how you're being tested, to make sure that you have the same, what I call masculine worth. Again, it doesn't have anything to do with feminine, masculine, but you learn about that in Unblocked Opulence as well, that you have that same applicable worth to money. They're always connected. So great question. And pass those tests, DRE all the X stuff until you feel so expanded that you can have what you want in career, and like such a catch and so worthy of anything you want in your personal life that all the X stuff is just petty.
All right. I'm at a job that I love and started before I started doing this work. And I took a lower salary for the experience opportunity, and it had so many things that were on my list. I really love everything about the job, but now that I'm more in my worth, I'm starting to feel deeply undervalued because of my low salary. I've asked for a pay raise, but feel resentful that they didn't come back at the number I asked for. Should I give them an ultimatum that I will leave if they don't give me my number, or stay at the job I love but feel undervalued?
This is actually such a clear example of, I think it was the very first question, that we had that question, do I go and is it okay if I ghost and yada, yada? Mm-hmm. And then you brought up the great question, well, should I be speaking my truth or be confrontational or speak my boundaries? This is a perfect example of when you subconsciously aren't worthy enough, unblocked enough for what you are going to do, it just backfires on you. So when you asked for this raise, you hadn't done the work, the unconscious work, to actually feel so valuable like projecting that you're so valuable. And if you don't get what you want, you're out of there. So therefore, that's so wild because in the world, this is all that's really happening is it's like one subconscious is talking to another subconscious at all times. Like we honestly will get to a place where we don't even really need to have conversation to get our needs met. You know, I think it'll get back to like primitive animal. We'll be obviously very evolved and conscious, but the real way we'll be effective is when we get our subconscious projection straight with what we're trying to communicate. So this is a great example of somebody who went and asked for a raise and like asked for the things they wanted, but hadn't done the work to actually project, I'm worth this and I will accept nothing less. And you're going to lose something very valuable if you don't give it to me. If you came at that request from if your subconscious was in alignment with your request, you would have received it from the company. So you have options here. Number one is to go do that work, give it a tiny bit of time and see if they just offer you a raise because they see that energetically you're getting ready to leave. You're energetically shifting of how worthy you feel and see if then they offer it at that point. And if not, you can obviously let them know after you're at a place that you're projecting this subconsciously, I'm starting to look for other opportunities because I have to make this certain number. And they have the chance there to keep you. And if they don't, you get to leave and go find the next thing. And you will attract it because you're finally in a place that you project you're worthy of it. So what's happening is now you're still projecting that you're not worth that amount and that you're willing to kind of be a doormat a little bit. It's just like dating. That's why money and love are so connected. You got to go do the work to project your worth, and then either it'll align or this will fall off and the next thing will manifest through that's worth that amount.
And what I've learned also through doing the work is that, you know, sometimes I'll get really attached to something that I love, but I know it's not quite right for me. Then I can tell myself that it's just an expander to show me that, like, you found this job that you love, but that doesn't mean it's going to be the only job that you love.
Totally.
Like, jobs like this do exist out in the world. So allowing that to also come in if you feel like too scared to let go of that job.
Yeah, and that's going to help you project a lot more worth in your subconscious because you're not like, oh my God, this is the only
desperation.
Thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right, the last question. I recently purchased my very first house at the age of 23, which is
Congrats. Oh my God. We're trying to get like Lila to go buy a house. We have to get you two, Kate, too, but you don't want to be in the desert. I'm like, Joshua Tree's so cheap.
I've literally been browsing houses, which is a huge accomplishment. Yes, it is. But I am now not completely in love with it. There are things about the house that I enjoy, but now I feel stuck because I feel like I settled too soon. I feel like I want to move already, and I've been here for only a few months. I was excited about the house when I got it, but now I'm not. What's going on energetically?
Woohoo! You're about, man, this is, I'm just so proud of you, number one. I don't know if you're like in Detroit and your house was $10,000, but whatever it is, I'm just so proud that you've made an investment. Here's the beautiful thing. You're not stuck. It can be a rental and you can go rent the next place that you want, and this pays for your rental mortgage. So what I would really get clear on, I would start to look at this house as an investment you made. Like it's kind of like the job. Some of the work I would be doing in the daily reprogramming exercises, this is not going to be my house forever. It doesn't have to be my house next year if I don't want to. I now have an investment that I can make a small amount of passive income off of. So if I'm not happy here, I can go manifest the rental I want or the next house I'm going to buy if that's an option for you, or just the rental. And this investment now will be rented by somebody that's helping to pay for that for me. This is going to be an investment forever that's going to help pay for my lifestyle. This is house number one, rental number one. And that's probably why you attracted this place, is that it's going to make the perfect first investment for you. So don't feel like you're stuck. That's the first work I would do. Secondly, I would start to call in what you do want next if this isn't the place. That don't feel like you have to settle and stay here. This is going to keep your momentum and magnetism moving if you start to look at and expand through what the next housing situation you really do want is. And I'll equate this to something that feels a little less like high stakes, because in people's minds, buying a house feels like such a commitment and high stakes. And I say it this way, like kind of making fun of that, because I do believe that everybody is capable of buying a house at some point in their life if they expand and believe that it's possible. We have a real system that likes to make people feel like that's scary and they haven't been educated on numbers or how to get a loan or that it's possible. It is possible. So that's what I'm just saying this to expand everybody out there. You can buy a house if this is something that's a dream of yours, and it can be more simple than it's made out to seem like it is. There's a will, there's a way for it. Your magnetism and manifestation will keep propelling if you get into the mindset of beginning to no longer settle in this house if it's not the right fit, that you can have another living experience. So I would get very clear on what that is. And so the example I was going to give like a less stakes example is, it's like when you call in a partner and you thought that it was everything on your list and you get them and it's the perfect thing and you get it and you're like, fuck, this isn't what I really wanted. Then you let them go and you're single for a little bit. And what that was for you, it was just something to help you get even more refined and clear about what you want. And that is so okay. It's so great. And that's what this house is for you. And unlike a relationship, this is a fantastic investment that's going to benefit you for the rest of time, even if it serves as a rental for a little while for you, or for the next 20 years, it's a rental. Thank you, universe. Awesome. So congratulations. Don't stay if you don't want to, and use this as an investment that helps pay for your next living situation. So that was a really good episode. I think we covered a lot of great things.
Oh, yeah.
And the exercise that I want you guys to go through, even though it feels non-conventional, is I want you to think of one very tangible thing that you may feel close to or you want in your life right now. And I want you to write it down. So whatever you're calling in, maybe it's a new job, maybe, for like the example of the question we had where the person asked for a raise and they were declined it and their subconscious wasn't in alignment. It wasn't really projecting that they were worthy of it. They were asking for it. Again, that's like the big lesson, that our words and thoughts mean very little. Our subconscious projection means everything. So I want you to get very clear on one thing you're calling in. And then I want you to walk it through. It feels unconventional, but it's actually a really good DI for this. The unblocked full moon DI in the pathway, which you're already in if you're watching supported. I want you to go through that. And while you're in that DI, bringing to mind the thing you want, I want you to ask yourself, maybe it's at the end if you haven't gotten the clarity within the DI, at the very end when it's just the music playing, I want you to ask yourself, what in me still doesn't feel worthy of this thing that I want? What in me doesn't feel like I can have? Or maybe I'm afraid of this thing that I want, or I'm settling. I want you to get very clear on that, because that's going to give you the landscape of if your subconscious projection is truly in alignment with what you're asking for. And whatever comes up for you around that, all the answers, take through the daily reprogramming exercise and look at where you need expanders. That's your work for the next 2 weeks. So again, it's getting clear on exactly what you're calling in right now, going through unblocked full moon. And if you haven't got the clarity during it, at the very end with the music, ask yourself, what about this thing do I still not feel deserving or worthy of? What do I feel scared about? Why don't I feel like I can have it or it can happen to me? When you get that clarity for the next 2 weeks, you're going to take those answers through the daily reprogramming exercise individually, and you're going to look at what still needs expanders. That's your homework, and that's where we can start to get our subconscious projection in alignment with our actions. And that's how we start to manifest. So good luck.
Thank you so much for tuning into the episode, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, we did. And in case you're not totally ready to join the pathway yet, I wanted to share a few of our free offerings that I'll often suggest to people as a little bit of a blueprint to get them started on their manifestation journey. The first place I like to direct people completely for free is the motivation. You can see it linked below or on our homepage as our testimony library. And it's categorized by different subjects, whether you're calling in career, money, love, wellness, and much more. When you're reading about a member's experience of what they manifested, you're actually seeing to believe and showing your subconscious that that very thing is possible for you. The second place I like to direct people is to the free clarity exercise, which is also linked below. In it, you get to try our own unique hypnosis process, learn about the science, and some journaling prompts. And the best part about this, you'll get a tiny taste of what it's like to go into your hypnotic state, bring your subconscious forward, and create new neural pathways while receiving clarity. And the third thing, if you haven't listened to it on this podcast yet, please go back to the episode titled Manifestation 101, where you'll learn the basics of neural manifestation to truly understand this process. So go ahead and check out those free resources, the motivation, the free clarity exercise, and the episode Manifestation 101, all linked below. And in an effort to make sure to have representation in this process series, go ahead and submit any process testimonials you have, especially to our LGBTQ plus community, our BIPOC, as well as the Ys, which is anyone in the community who is 45 and over. All right, we'll be back next week.